Hey, good morning, everybody. It's the day after Christmas. Not quite as nice as yesterday. It'll be in the 50s, but it's supposed to rain the next 3 days. So I figure I better run the garden railroad a little bit more before I put everything up in the shed. Most of the family has gone home. My daughter is still in town for a couple more days, but everyone else is gone. So it's clean up and put things away and everything. So we had a very good Christmas. Very lucky to have as much of my family here as there was. The only one, my sister and brother-in-law down in South Carolina couldn't make it, and a couple of nephews, but they live, quite some distance away and have kids, and so it's difficult for them to travel, and they want to make their own memories too. So we're going to run the operation today. Usually I run the cold branch in the morning. I'll say the crew came back for lunch, and now they're going to run back out the branch and switch the lumber yard, which is True Up lumber, and Bartram pulpwood. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to use the same locomotive. First thing we have to do is pick up our train. About to run a switch already. That's me too. So the crew at Williamson already blocked the cars in the order we need them. You can see the modern sawmill there, sort of copied after a small sawmill in southern Ohio. The little white building is the sawmill head office, and that's the old station for Truett. Right now the locomotive is passing the foundation, so the lumber company bought it and moved it over there, used as their office. And like I said, I get wood chips, and I make railroad ties. That's the two things that they do there. As you can see, Jazzy is very interested in the proceedings over here. So, we call this her settee. My wife does. We've got a pad that we put on the cushion to keep most of her dog hair off of it, but she loves this cooler weather, and she spends a lot of time laying on that thing. Another thing, while I've got the camera in this position, as you can see there, even though I cut down my Bradford pear tree, I'm still getting pears on the layout because I can't do anything about my neighbor's Bradford pear tree that hangs over my layout a little bit. Actually, I'm going to talk to them next year about maybe letting me cut off a couple of the overhanging branches, because they don't really get any shade out of it where their house is. All the shade actually comes to my house because I'm looking west right now. So I've still got a little bit of a mess, and I'm going to have it evidently all winter as stuff drops. Once it freezes, it's not too bad to clean up though. Okay, we've run a couple laps, so let's get ready to switch. Just put the camera on one spot. We should be able to see most of the action. So just like with the coal train, I've left the caboose back in front of the pond. Now right now, at my age, I can get up and down here pretty easy. But to uncouple the cars at the lumber yard or at the sawmill, I have to climb up into the layout. So it's not really something I probably want to be doing 10 or 15 years from now. So I have to walk around the end so I can throw the turnouts. So Truett Lumber, we have a wood chip hopper, and they cut railroad ties. So we've got a bulkhead flat car too. I used to have sort of straps around the lumber loads on the flat car, but I really couldn't keep them on there. And like I said, in G-scale, I just don't worry about it as much. So here I go, up in the layout. There's certain places where I can stand. Be very careful not to kick anything. So if I ever do revise my track plan, I'm going to try to make it to where I don't have to get up into the layout to run trains. I might have to get up there to do some maintenance on things, but I shouldn't have to get up there to do switching. Pulling the loaded cars out, and I'll put them on the passing siding. I probably should have just gone ahead and put them on the same track as the gondola, but I didn't think of it when I was doing it. In case you're wondering, I've body mounted all my couplers. They're all micro trains, but my curves are really the tightest you could possibly have to have body mount couplers. I probably would have been better off to have left them as truck mounted with my curves. I definitely think body mount couplers are better, but if you don't get them perfectly centered on these cars, you can have some problems on my tight curves. And that's another reason why I have to, line the cars up, with my hands and things, because of the tightness of the curves. So I've spotted the empties. I'm going back to pick up the loads and put them on the track with the gondola, where I should have put them in the first place. You can see the supports for the wood down there, and they're kind of close right here. When I was building this, I was walking along that board, and I kept wanting to fall off. I kept wanting to fall toward the fence. I got a level, and the dirt right here is the widest part of the railroad, and it was definitely pushing those posts out, even though they're set in concrete. So I went back in and put a couple more in, and it stabilized it, but there's no way I could actually straighten it up. But it hasn't moved any in the last 4 years. The railroad is now about 5.5 years old since I started building it. So now I'm going to go back and get the caboose to tack onto the end of the train. One thing I thought was pretty interesting when I started doing a little bit of research, the Western Maryland Railroad, of course, they hauled a lot of coal, but they also had a lot of wood products. And when you'd see their trains, the wood chip hoppers and sawdust, things like that, would always be ahead of the coal cars, because the paper companies that got the wood chips didn't want coal dust in the chips. So as the train's moving forward, you've probably seen pictures of coal trains with a cloud of coal dust blowing back over it. Well, that would settle on the wood chips. So that's another switching thing. When I do run the two of them together, I never put a coal car ahead of the wood chip car. A switching problem, I guess you'd say. So after we tack the caboose back on, of course, we'll run the engine around to the front of the train and head out. Now, I did stop and switch the pulpwood facility, but somehow I didn't film it. I don't know. I don't know what I did. I think it's one of those deals where I thought I was turning the camera on and I was turning it off, or I just didn't hit the on button. So I missed it. So next time I do this, I'll be sure to include that. So they actually did couple here on this curve, the caboose to the wood chip car. I climb up in there and check it anyway in a few minutes, but it actually did couple. So in this layout, basically I have the coal company, the pulpwood loading, and the lumber company, which, you know, has two different cars it can get. I've got a brick building back in the corner, which is actually right down to the right of the building. I used to say it was the N&W Freight House, and I could switch a box car in there or something, but generally I don't do a lot of yard operations. That little water tower you see in the back was a project some guy gave up. He got out of Garden Railroading and selling all his stuff, and I was the first one to respond. It needs a water spout, but that'll come in handy if I ever go back to running steam. They did a really good job on it. Perfect for like a little branch line or a logging railroad. That's where I got up into the layout and walked around. I decided I'd just edit that out. All right, so since you can see all the Bradford pears on the wood there. I said that's going to be going on for months. So since I skipped the loading the pulpwood, we're coming back into the yard. You can also see my retaining wall there is starting to show a little bit of wear. I built that piece by piece a few years ago. So once we pull into the yard and stop, that'll be it for this. I do have a little clip at the end to show you how I keep my freight cars, because if you have to pick up each individual freight car and carry it out to your layout, you tend not to run it very often. So this was the solution that I came up with anyhow. In case anybody was wondering, this is how I put my cars and stuff away. I've got a removable bridge that goes into the shed. It's just stub-ended tracks in there, but now they've all coupled together, I can just walk in there and pull them in and put them in the places they need to be, and then close the door with the cat door. So that's how I keep my cars, keep my locomotives inside, because I have to charge the batteries, not want them to be out here in the weather or in the cold with the mice and stuff. Anyhow, so everybody stay safe.